I think we got you. I can't hear you. You're not on mute, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
First of all, I have you scheduled at noon. So nice to meet you, Josh. I'm Rob.
Nice to meet you, Rob.
And I know you through Barry Relaford. Do you know Barry?
Yep.
Okay. So he's been like driving me, he's just like beating on me with heavy dew over time. And he's, anyway, so that's how I'm here. Anyways,
Great.
I have you at noon today. So I don't know why it wouldn't have updated. I think I created the calendar invite. I'm in Chicago. I'm Central Time. So for some reason I have you at noon because I think the last time you said I tried to back into it. I don't know. Anyways, I got confused. I had you at noon. So
yeah, you know what I'm seeing? This is the trouble with this time change twice a week is that in the group, it's actually, well, it's at 11 my time, but it's supposed to stay at 10 my time. But we're in Arizona, so everybody else shifts and we
because
don't.
your time, yeah, dude.
And I'm just noticing that when we set up the events,
That's wonky.
they didn't set it to Arizona time. So
That'll do it.
anyway, so I'm going to I need to update that right now. Yeah,
I have a tech question for you of all things next.
Uh-huh.
Are you on a Mac?
I am on a Mac, yes.
Okay, so you look like you have a real camera with a nice of the lens to give you this bokeh look that you have. Is that true?
I do, yeah. I've got a
Okay.
Sony DLSR camera up
Yep.
here.
So I have a Canon 6D and I've been using it. This is not it. Up last week, all of a sudden, none of my apps even recognizes the stupid thing. Now I have an EOS utility. It
Yes.
sees it and it's updated, but like I cannot figure it out. Have you had this happen?
I've had a lot of issues with cameras. By the way, good morning, Cynthia. We're just doing tech support hour here. Oh,
I'm just
I
so
don't think she can hear you.
desperate because I haven't figured out what happened. Oh.
Yeah, sorry. So let's see. So you said you had a Canon?
Yeah, I have a DSLR and it's
Uh-huh.
been hooked up to my computer. I've been using it for a year plus.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden last week, I mean, I already had Sonoma. I've already had all the updates there. All of a sudden last week.
So it was working before though?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, you can see I like with my issue, maybe it's the hub I'm using. I'm not sure. I have a hub where everything's plugged in. And
Yeah.
because then all of a sudden, like my Yeti is no longer my go-to microphone. I got to reset everything every time. So I just figured with all this software updates, man, maybe something like that happened. So
Yeah. Oh, looks like Cynthia left us.
it probably caused by me. I'm so sorry, Josh.
She's probably like, wait, I was joining an author call, not a camera support group. Um, yeah, I don't know. I updated as well. I had no issues with it. But I'm on a Sony and then I'm trying to, what's the software that I'm using? It's I'm looking for it here. I don't know if it's Sony specific.
Yeah, because most of the Mac stuff will not recognize an external camera outside of their camera.
Yeah, I had to, I mean, I'm using, let's see, I've got some sort of dongle thing. What is it called? It's HDMI video capture. I can't, it just says video
Yeah, that's
capture.
okay.
It's some generic thing.
I got something like this where everything's plugged into it. And so I've got
Oh,
like your speak.
that's much bigger than what I've got going
Oh,
into
yeah,
mine.
and they're not bad. It's like, I don't know, 70
Oh,
bucks.
okay, got it. It's just a hub.
70 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to meet you, Josh. I didn't mean for it to start like that. I'm late and I'm talking about tech issues and I've scared off one of your people. So that's great. We're off to a good start with me. You sure you want to continue?
Oh yes, let's continue. Let me just I am sending out this
Dork
this
alert here.
message about the time because all right, now it's been sent out, so hopefully Hopefully some more people jump on since the time was wrong, but now it's right. Okay. Looks like we got it. All right. Sorry about that. I should have
No.
noticed that before. Well, let's dive into your book stuff, Rob, while we're waiting for other people to show up.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself. I know we've had
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
email back and forth.
Yeah. So I'm how I know Barry is from my time at Franklin Covey. Are you familiar with Franklin Covey?
Yeah, in fact, do you know Andy Sindrich?
Oh yeah.
So he's a member of this group. He just published his book and he went
Yeah.
through this. So
Oh, did he? Okay. I mean, I figure you know, Franklin Covey's kind of got a weird kind of go-to market strategy. They'll handpick somebody, they'll write the book, and then they'll put a diverse group of people these days all over the book that you don't know, you've never heard of, and all of a sudden there's a book out. That's kind of their thing now. So
yeah, I think he did it all by himself. I don't think it might have been
it's not
published with some
change. It's not the
Franklin Covey
change
help,
book.
but
It's not the change book, is it?
let me see what it's called. I was just trading emails with him
Because
this
they're
morning.
marketing that one heavy, and I can't imagine
No, I
they
think
put their claws on something, and it's theirs.
yeah, no, this is let's see, what is his book? Maybe it
And I very much like your aesthetics on your background, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, where is it?
Because he just went out, he's been promoting a change book with somebody else I thought was the lead writer. He's a guy out of Franklin Covey on the other side of the pond. But anyways, that I spent like 11 years at Franklin Covey. So I've been in the past 14 years kind of all in that learning and development space.
Mhm.
And I've just since recently kind of gone on my own. Barry's going to be back from France here in a few months, and I think we're going to collaborate on some things as well. So my mainstay has been in learning and development. Always had a sales background.
Mhm.
Um,
I can't
I'm
find his book quickly, but
That's
maybe it
okay.
is the change book. But anyway,
Yeah. Anyways, I'm not sure what else you'd like to know.
well, so are you working on a book right now then?
Yeah, I mean, I've been gnawing on this for so many years. It's just probably since I got to Franklin Covey, which is so stupid. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this should be it or it's the right thing 100% yet. I'm still trying to figure this out. But when I was at Franklin Covey, I was teaching a solution called the 5 choices to extraordinary productivity. That was
Okay.
what I started there, and it's just kind of what they had me doing. And Franklin Covey had a little bit of and this is Dr. Covey combined with Viktor Frankl,
Mhm.
where between stimulus and response, there's this moment of choice. And that line, the moment of choice, turned into the moment of choice, and I've just been like fixated on that phrase
Mhm.
for all these years. And I teach about it as often as I can. Like I am just super energized by it. And I do think that, and so the why behind all of that is I think people struggle with decision making for a variety of reasons. They're worried they're not going to make the right decision. They're wondering if this was the right decision, but they're also very much fascinated by how people end up where they end up. And so there's what's even killing me more is there's a History Channel podcast right now that's just gone, not, and it's not History Channel, but this guy goes through biographies. I can't remember his name offhand, but he's been doing these episodes just going through biographies talking about these people's lives, famous people's lives, people that we're all interested in perhaps. And all laden throughout it, he doesn't ever say it explicitly. It's about these little moments of choice. And I hear this phrase, I was trying to figure out what to do, and then I had this moment. They'll say it that way, and I'm like, right, like this is it.
Mhm.
So I've vacillated on exactly what I want it to be. Should it be a book? Should it be a series of books like Moments of Choice for youth, for adults, for at work, for whatever, almost a chicken soup for the soul thing, laden with stories. And then I've also just like, why haven't I got a podcast where I'm just doing that? You know, I'm just talking about these moments of choice. So that's where I'm at, man,
Hmm.
and I'm probably feeling like I'm a little bit in, I'm having that imposter stuff, that always creeps up, right? So
Yep,
I don't know if
with
that's
everybody.
helpful. That's a general flyover, I would also add, I have completed an ultra marathon, a 50-mile run on my own. I did it all by myself during COVID. It wasn't supposed to be that way, just everything got canceled. But I did it, and so why did I do that? Because I want to do something really hard mentally.
Hmm.
And I mean, the things I learned, oh my gosh. And so I'll do things like that. Do I run anymore? No, I don't. But I did it enough so I could do it.
Uh-huh.
I've biked one time, a year, 2 years later. I had a friend at work that she was finishing like the last 15 days of whatever chemo that she was doing to just beat breast cancer. And I thought, dang it, that is hard. So I decided to do, I was a little late. So I decided to do a 24-hour bike ride. I asked the bike guy at the shop, I go, what would be a good distance to go for in 24 hours? He said 300 miles. I'm like, okay, I've done 175 in a day. I could probably do that. And so, like a week later, I just decide I'm going to do this. And I didn't listen to music. I tried to imagine her, and then I got within like 8 miles, and my wife goes, "Just finish. You're well within the time." And I'm like, "But I can't." Kathy couldn't quit 2 days remaining. She had to finish the 2 days. So I mean, just the things I learned. So that's kind of combining in there with all of this as well. So
Yeah. Welcome, Dr. Lisa, by the way. We're just talking with Rob about his book, or the book he's going to write, we should say.
thank you.
Um, well,
Hi, gentlemen. How are you?
fantastic. Good morning to you. So, Rob, the stuff you're going through with imposter syndrome, everybody goes through that. Doesn't matter how highly qualified they are, everybody deals with it.
Sure.
It sounds like you might have a little bit of paralysis by too many options. You've got all
Oh
these
yeah.
choices. Do I do a series? Do I do one book?
Yeah.
Who do I do the first book for? Which a lot of people get stuck in that too. And they end up not doing anything because they don't know which of the great choices to choose from. Um, and it's having done ultra marathons myself, the longest I've done is a 70K. So like, I think that's like 46 miles or something.
That's amazing, dude.
But
Congratulations.
having done that and having written books, I'm not sure which is harder, but they might
Probably
be
the
about the
book.
same
I
level.
would say the book.
But but here's the thing. When I wrote my books, I didn't have anybody to help me. I was just flying blind. I was trying to find stuff online.
Sure.
I had no group. And the purpose of this group is to make it easy for you to know what's next. And that's what gets people tripped up a lot is they say, well, where do I start? What's the next step? Where do I go from here? And every single one of those decision points becomes a place where people get hung up. And the point of the workbook in this group is to help people not get stuck on those things. And the thing that helped Andy, your coworker there, and yes, it is the change book actually that he wrote in this group. So the thing that he said really gave him the reminder, the impetus to get through it is we had him, well, everybody, and if you've looked at the workbook, this is the first thing I share is get a sticky note and just write, I am an author on it and stick it on your computer screen or on
Mm-hmm.
the bottom of your monitor, somewhere where you'll see it every day. But just write that down. I am an author. And you'll see that every day. And then it's going to bug you. And you're going to say, well, if I'm an author, why am I not writing my book?
Right.
And for him, that's what he did. And a year later, he had his book. And he said that was really the key motivator for him was that little sticky note.
Yeah.
And if you start thinking like an author, you'll start acting like an author. So I would say just choose any of these audiences. Just
Mm-hmm.
choose one, doesn't matter which one, and just start working on it. And if you get halfway through and you're like, nah, you know what? I actually want to
Right.
write the one for teens first or for parents first or whatever it is. Great, switch over to it. But just choose one and just start working on it because you can reuse that later regardless. So
Right.
um I have a book that I'm working on that's kind of a similar thing where there's the general book, but then I'm going to customize it for all sorts of different audiences. And so I've faced some of that same challenge myself of, well, who do I want to focus this first book on? But the key is just choose somebody, anybody, and start doing something, because any progress is going to be better than no progress. And if you keep wondering who you should write for, then you'll end up 15 years more down the road saying, why didn't I do
Right.
this 15 years ago? Again,
Right.
so much of this is just getting started and just plowing through it and just doing something, anything messy, bad, ugly, whatever, but just doing something.
Right. No, that's true. Thank you. I wrote that down.
And then just show up for these calls and let us hold you accountable and let us answer all your questions that you have. Whenever you get stuck on something, just come here and say, what about this? What should I do here? And either I or somebody else is going to have an answer for you.
Cool. Thanks, Josh.
Well, since I messed up the time this week and everything, everybody's going to show up like in 50 minutes probably, but that means you guys get more attention during this hour. So, Dr. Lisa, let's welcome you and would love to. Hello. Good to see your face and welcome to the group and introduce yourself a little bit.
Thanks. Excuse me. I went out for the first time in a while last week, and of course I picked up a cold, and then it became 80 degrees, and I couldn't justify it not being at work.
I've got a cold too, so if I sound weird or congested, I'm suffering from the same thing.
Understood. Okay, so Josh, I've been following you for a really, really, really long time. And I finally said, okay, well, I'm in the program. If I don't write a book, I feel like Josh is going to be angry with me. Because I've got this benefit now. I've got to use it. So I am a content strategist. I have a small content and digital events agency outside of Atlanta. And as much as I work with client content, my own content has been almost non-existent and very sporadic. But I teach the same things and I answer the same questions a lot for clients. And so for clients, for speaking engagements and so on. But I kept trying to figure out, what is this book supposed to be about? So I thought it was supposed to be a book about content strategy, which would, of course, be a huge book. I kind of narrowed it down to specifically building a marketing program to go from solo to scaling for Black women in IT or in other B2B services, where they're a consultant, they're doing the work, they're doing everything, and they're hiring everybody under the sun, but with no plan. So I kind of narrowed it down to see if I could really invest in writing a whole book about this. Here are my challenges.
Mm-hmm.
My background is higher education, not marketing. I fell into marketing as part of my graduate assistantship, and as a web developer, then expanded into content management, content strategy, and so on, because no one was looking at the websites I built. I still have to shift from academic writing to copywriting in the process of writing my own content. And so my imposter syndrome, even though I've been at this now for almost 14 years, is, I'm still like, do I get to call myself a marketer if I didn't actually formally study? I don't have any degrees in marketing. And that's probably why I haven't tried to speak at any marketing conferences. I speak at business conferences so I can speak directly to my clients. But am I supposed to write a book about marketing even though I don't have that formal background behind me?
Well, let me get rid of that concern real quick. Absolutely, you can write a book about marketing, and you can be the best marketer in the world without a degree in marketing. when I wrote my book, Chief Marketing Officers at Work, I interviewed 30 CMOs. I interviewed the CMOs from PayPal, Spotify, Target, Home Depot, GE, all these companies. I think out of the 30, there were maybe 2 or 3 of those CMOs who had studied marketing in school.
Okay.
All the rest had something completely unrelated to marketing in their background. A lot of them hadn't even done marketing for all that long. I mean, some of them had been marketing for like 5 years, and all of a sudden they're the CMO of this billion-dollar company. So if they can do it, you can certainly do it.
All right. I feel validated.
I mean, my degree is in information systems management. I took, I think, 1 marketing class in college, and then I started a marketing agency, and here I am. But I mean, all my studying has been reading books and going to conferences and experimenting. That's how I got my background in marketing. So the thing I love about marketing is it's really one of those things where it's just, can you do it? Can you get the job done? Can you produce the results that people want? And if you can, then you get to talk about marketing. It's not like being a doctor or something, or a lawyer
Right.
or an accountant, where it's kind of like you really want to know that they have a degree and that they studied it formally. Marketing's one of those things that it's just all about the results, right? If it works, it works. I mean, I guess everything's that way. It's just that we don't trust
Yeah,
accountants
I
and
don't want
doctors
to.
to say it
I'm
just
okay with
works.
a self-taught web developer or IT person, but not really looking for a self-taught doctor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, you look at all the great marketers out there. I mean, like Joe Pulizzi, of course, he's the content marketing guy, right? But I don't know that he studied marketing. And would we care if he had or he hadn't? I mean, he's just a brilliant marketer. So
Right.
we really don't care. But I love the idea behind your book. So if I understand correctly, so Solo to Scale, the idea is from being your own content creator to scaling like a department or something, or bringing other people in to assist with the content development, right?
Mhm.
Which is exactly what I'm going through, because, excuse me,
Mhm.
there's that cold. I'm going through that myself. I've been going through this for years because I write my books, I write my articles, I write my social media posts, but then it gets to the point where I'm like, I could be doing so much more, but how do I make that leap from where I'm at to bringing somebody else in to help me without ruining the content, right? And I'm figuring out some of that stuff. Like, I can make a YouTube video, but then I can bring somebody else in and they can chop that up into mini videos and things, where it's still my content, but I'm not doing the editing or the chopping. Or I can bring somebody in to take my blog post and they can chop that down and turn it into social media posts. Or they
Mhm.
can take a social media post and turn it into a blog post, and then I can approve it and say, yeah, that's still my voice. That's still me. That was my idea. They just expanded it and added some quotes from other people or sources or something. But it's been tough for me to figure out the right system for this. And so I can see the value in this book, because it's definitely a book I would read and something that I would say, yeah, that's exactly what I've needed the past few years.
This might be, I got to give some value back if I can, because you're being so kind, Josh. I had a call on Monday with a founder of a company called The Fuse.
Mhm.
And this might be for both of you, actually, because you have content, and Josh, you just laid this out. The way this guy showed this thing, I feel like that's something for you, because they have I think you need to talk to them. I'll connect you to the content. I'll forward what he sent me after our call. It's not for me right now, but
Mhm.
I'm actually recommended to a not-for-profit that I know. Anyways, it's like they have an AI inside their tool that if you had an hour-long YouTube, it'll bust it up and then
Mhm.
it'll turn it into, listen to this segment here, and it'll kind of title it. It's really amazing, actually. It might be perfect for what you just described, Josh, and maybe even you, Dr. Lisa, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, there are a number of really, really good tools. I hadn't heard of Fuse. I'm going to look that one up. And probably the reason I ended up in this particular space was because AI has made it so much easier to multiply yourself, as it were. So I feel like I've been tool jumping lately,
Mhm.
for podcasts, for videos, for your own, breaking up your own content, turning your blog posts into videos. And, there's so many really good options. And a lot of business creators get stuck with, okay, well, let me let it write for me. Let me let it do X, Y, Z, as opposed to being an actual partner on your team. So that kind of, and then there's also data analysis and so on, and customer analysis that helps to manage after you train it to your voice, to make that period of time where you're making good money, but you can't afford to hire another person yet. Right in that space is where AI helps you grow without going crazy.
Yeah. The thing is, there's so many options, it's easy to get confused. And that's where a book like yours could come in handy to say, look, I went out, I tried 20 things. Here's the one thing you need to do. Just do this. Yeah. And I grabbed that link. So just for people watching this later, freefuse.com is the website that Rob shared.
No, I'll be jumping in there to grab that link too.
Yeah. And it's great because this is making content creation more accessible for so many people. When I paused my Published Author podcast a while ago, I've been meaning to restart it, just need to get around to it. But I paused it in part because it was costing me $400 an episode. And I love talking to people. So I was interviewing 10, 12 people a month. So I was spending like $4,500 on podcast editing every month. And I was like, I don't know if this is really sustainable for me to do until I figure out my revenue model and everything, because it wasn't making any money. It was just, I was having a blast doing it. But now they've got all these different AI podcast editing tools that you can just upload your audio file to, and it will remove ums and uhs and coughs, and
It's crazy.
it will take care of the audio and everything. And I haven't fully tried one out, but I'm excited to get on that, because if I can lower my cost by 10, essentially from 400 down to $40 or something, well, then that's cheap enough that almost anybody can do a podcast.
Exactly.
I mean, it's practically free.
Are you talking like
So that's exciting.
Zencaster or something like that, Josh?
So I use Zoom for the recording, but there are all these tools that you can invest in that are AI tools. There's one that I was looking into. It's called cleanvoice.ai.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of these out there that
You want to do video for your podcast. You want to have a video?
Yeah, I do video and audio because YouTube is actually the largest podcasting platform now.
For sure.
And so the video is just it's key for me. And I like doing the video. I like having the visual.
Do you get a high quality output though of the video?
Depends on the tool you use.
Yeah, I mean, for me with Zoom, it's high quality enough.
The recording? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that if Zoom is working for you, keep using it. If editing is the major challenge, and chopping things up, I hesitate to say which tool, because everyone's gonna say, Dr. Lisa said use this one. But the ones that I've personally had the easiest time with are Podium, and that's podium.page, and Descript, which is what we ended up with, because at the time, Podium wasn't processing videos yet, just audio. And Descript is what we use now, because we get 4K video, we get the thing that really sealed the deal for me was getting the captions and being able to brand the captions in, with the styling, and be able to edit the video from the transcript. So that helped us make that decision. And as far as clips and so on and so forth, it's a tool that makes life easier for someone who hates editing like I do.
That's great. See, I used Descript way back in the day, but this was before AI and everything. So
Mhm.
it was a fine tool back then, but I haven't used it since all this AI stuff's been introduced.
Yeah, it's better now. They bought out Squadcast, so now they have the remote video in addition to, uploading your own files.
It sounds like I need to hire you to help me get everything set up the right way so that I can take off running.
It That's a lot of what it's a lot of what we end up doing. I used to say I play plug-in bingo, because when I start talking about WordPress and other tools, they're like, okay, well, what about a tool that does this? That's okay. Well, we've used this and so on. So we played. What kind of tool do you need? We'll figure it out for you.
Yeah. So what do you do your recording in though? I mean, are you recording through Descript? Like
Mhm.
the actual
So
interview is happening through Descript?
yes. So now that they have Squadcast, because before I was actually using Riverside, which also records in 4K and does great stuff. And I left Riverside because Descript bought out Squadcast. So now you get from the recording of the interview all the way through the finished editing in one platform, which is that's their selling point.
Mm. All right, this is getting me interested. I'm gonna have to talk to my guy, and we might be in touch, Dr. Lisa, to get your help on setting this up, if that's
Okay.
something that you
Let
do.
me manage your expectations first, though. There's a lot of complaints from folks who have been using it all along that
Mhm.
all the changes are moving things around in places that they're not familiar with. So they're a little upset. But as someone who's a newer user,
It's all new
I don't
anyway.
know where it was
You don't
before.
know any different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
All
like a
right.
culture shift in a company. Everybody that's been around is like, and all the new people are like, this is great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, great. Well, so Dr. Lisa, what's the next step for you on your book?
So I've broken out the chapters in well, the same way I got my dissertation then actually is for every single course assignment, it had to do with some part of my research for the dissertation. So my goal now is a weekly blog post dedicated to one of the 10 chapters. It's going to be 11 chapters because I left out tech. I left out choosing tools. But from establishing authority to deciding what you're actually going to talk about, who are you as a thought leader, who are you as the voice of your industry, to okay, well, how do you pick the right team? How do you evaluate, 5 content creators and pick the one that's going to be closest to you? Which tools now to choose? So I have not been able to keep up with consistency in my content, and that's my major challenge because I'm working on everyone else's. But
It's tough. It's so tough.
yeah, I started a podcast, and it keeps flopping because I actually don't listen to podcasts because I don't process oral information as well as I do video or reading. So I'd rather read a blog post. But people were looking for the blogs. It's kind of I know my audience wants it, but I don't want to do it.
That's tough when you're in that position. It's like, for me, creating video that's solo video is very tough for me. It's hard for me to talk to a camera if there's nobody on the other side of it. This is easy. This is fun. I love talking to people. I can forget about the camera. But to sit there and script something and then say it, then I watch myself and I'm like, I sound terrible. And
Yeah, I got as
so,
far as one
yeah,
episode like that.
yeah.
Actually, as you say that, I've been considering someone mentioned that I could probably do a live consult instead of, just trying to explain a problem. So I'm thinking if I was actually helping someone, then I would actually be committed to doing the work.
Got it.
Yep.
So your podcast was a solo thing. It was just you talking. Is that right?
mostly interviews, but the interviews were not skewed toward the topic that I wanted. Because I basically took whoever would actually show up for the session. But now it was really, really hard to pick the right focus. So I actually did my seven systems all over again to make sure that I was actually committed to this particular set of topics within the book. And that actually now will help me narrow down the focus of who do I interview, what do I ask them, and things like that.
Got it. Yeah, 'cause some people do a solo podcast and they struggle with it because of this issue that I struggle with. It's just hard to talk to nobody. And so I've seen people I do interviews because that makes it easier for me, or people will get a co-host and then they kind of have a conversation with their co-host. Rob, did you have something you wanted to?
I was just thinking about as I was listening to you, Lisa. Do you go by Dr. Lisa or Lisa? I want to make sure I get it right.
I was Lisa much longer. Dr. Lisa is now the brand name because my friends after graduation.
Let's go with the brand name, Dr. Lisa.
Okay.
So I was just thinking, you said, you were doing the interviews, but sometimes it doesn't cover everything you'd kind of want to in that time frame, and you don't want to disrupt it. Maybe you do the interview, but then in post edit, after you just finished some portion of the conversation, but you wished it had gone a little bit further, you just pop in as a solo, and you just say, at this point in the conversation, this was great, and here's some other things, and then you can do some teach and then go back to your normal thing. That might be one consideration, I guess.
I hadn't thought about that.
So it's kind of a blend,
that's a good idea.
Because oftentimes, you see the title of the YouTube and it says how to, right? And then you're listening to this podcast and it's like, it's just pulled me in. I just waste another 30 minutes trying to zoom through and get everything, but they miss so many stuff. They don't tell you everything, right? And that's probably intentional at some level, but if that's really your intent, why not do it? I mean, I think that would be different. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I'd like to do that. For the ladies that I've interviewed so far, there's some correlation to the production process and so on, but
maybe it's in the future. Like the next one you do, you get done with it and you're like, oh, okay, but now it's fresh and you can kind of go back and now add that, and then kind of that point forward kind of a thing, right? That'll
and with editing being a lot easier now, I can pop in additional video, so that I'm gonna write that down.
I've always found myself to be a lot more tilted towards helping other people get what they want in life and not so much myself. So
it's a common problem to have, I think. It's so much easier to say, okay, I can help you do XYZ. This is what you need.
Yeah.
And then rather than take myself on as a client.
I like seeing people win.
So Lisa, it sounds like you have a plan, what you're doing with your book. Are there any questions that you have or any roadblocks that you're running into that we can help you out with?
Not that you haven't covered yet.
Okay.
The biggest thing for me was when I was trying to figure out the why for the book. I know I want to help these women build the legacy firm that they dream of, because even I thought at some point that I wanted to have my own Ogilvy on the side of a building. But I couldn't get to why is this book important, or why would they pick up my book versus someone else's, other than I also happen to be like them and I'm growing a firm out of something I built myself. I started freelancing as a web designer because I had a preemie at home and I was a single mom. So I was like, okay, well, I've got a house, I've got an office. I've got to be able to do something at home with, the skills that I've taught myself. And that's where the firm actually, the agency actually started, as just me freelancing as a web designer.
Mm-hmm. So I think
So
it's, sorry, go ahead.
that was me trying to figure out what to say next.
Well, I think it's interesting how, I mean, you were up here and then you zoomed way down, you really niched way down. Even if you brought it back up to just that solo to scale level, but making it for anybody who's trying to solo to scale, I still think you would have a book that has enough of a niche audience and would be great. I mean, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, I want this book. Like, this is exactly what I need right now. And I'm not a Black woman in IT, but I could still use this book. And of course, you can still angle it towards that audience by just the fact that that's you, that's your story. So it might still appeal, and that your stories are going to be that, right? Your stories are going to be about you and your experiences and what you've been through. So it's going to attract and appeal to an audience that's like you. But at the same time, maybe it makes sense to make it a little bit broader so you can attract some more, just a larger number there.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I Googled the hell out of how to scale how to scale as a solo agency owner. And there's a couple of blog posts and folks trying to sell me a coaching program, but not really so much useful info.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I'm thinking,
I think I could safely broaden it a bit.
and now that I think about it, I know so many other people who are in this same situation. So I have a sister-in-law and she's a YouTuber and she has built a huge audience. She's got over 1 million followers across YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Wow.
And she was just invited to a dinner that YouTube put on for female YouTubers. And she met the head of their creator division. And the lady was like, oh, yeah, I've been following you forever and stuff. But my sister-in-law, what she hasn't figured out is how to monetize this. Like, she's still broke. It's
Oh,
like she has this huge audience and people are telling her, like, I know people with audiences half the size of yours and they're making $1 million a year. And she's like, tell me how. Like, how do I do this? It's like she's flying by the seat of her pants. Just she's got her phone and she's filming stuff and it's working. But it's like, how do I transition that into making money? But also her issue is, like, she doesn't have anybody helping her with editing or creating more content. And she could be scaling this. I feel like she could be chopping this up and creating probably a lot more content out of what she's already doing. But I don't even know if that's really on her radar so much. She was telling me about another family she knows that's figured out the monetization. And she's like, they've got a basement with 6 employees down there editing their stuff full time. I'm like, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? She's like, yeah, I'm doing this
That would
all
be
myself.
awesome.
So,
Is
I mean,
she
she's
on
facing that
TikTok at all?
scaling problem too.
Is she on TikTok at all, Josh?
Yeah, she's on TikTok. So she's got a couple 100,000 there.
But she's not getting any revenue from that, huh?
I mean, she's getting some revenue, but
Not a
it's
lot.
like
Yeah,
the other
it's
month.
kind of peanuts if you're just relying on the platform.
Yeah, so they've done some merch, but merch is kind of a terrible business model for
Yeah.
YouTubers as well. I mean,
Mhm.
and so they're really trying to make the YouTube thing work because they have, I think she's got 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I mean, like, and she's growing 10, 20,000 a month. Like, she's doing
Yeah.
well in
Wow.
terms of audience growth, but
Yeah.
anyway, she's looking for a brand manager who will come in and fix all this stuff. She's had some false starts that way, but just on the content side, I'm thinking if she knew better how to scale her content, she could be at, instead of getting to 800,000 or 1 million subscribers on YouTube next year, she might be able to get to 1.5 or 2 million.
Right.
She just helps her out that much more when it comes to the monetization. So I think there are a lot of people out there who need your book on how to scale from that solo realm, because there's so many people in that solo realm and it's such a hard leap to make. It's so much easier to just say, oh, I'll just do this myself. I can't find anybody I trust. No, I can't rely on anybody. I'll just do it. That's what I've been doing for 10 years. I'll just do it. Doesn't work to outsource it, but I'm probably doing it the wrong way.
Okay. All right. So the book, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, it's your
I was
book. I'm
wondering
just saying.
if it was you solved my problem of whether or not it's a book worth writing for the couple hundred women that I was thinking of. But now I see that, okay, there is a broader audience that would be just as interested.
I think there's a broader audience. And then, I mean, this would be a great book. You could go to Joe Pulizzi and get him to put a blurb in there or something and help market it, and all the other content marketers too. Like, it's so easy to get those blurbs from big names. I've gotten those blurbs from people I had zero connection to, and you reach out and half the time they're just like, yeah, I'll give you a blurb. So you get a couple of blurbs from these huge content marketers, and then you've got the next big content marketing book, and your angle is different. There's so many people just rehashing the same old content marketing is great, here's how you do it. But you're taking it into this niche of solo to scale, which it's such an important bridge. There's another guy who was in this group for his book, and it was on sales. And his thing was, you've got this amazing salesperson who's just killing it on sales. So what happens? They get promoted to the sales leader, but they don't know how to lead a team. They don't know how to motivate a team. And so there's this huge gap between being a great salesperson and being a great sales leader. And his book was aimed at that gap. How do you make that leap from sales phenom to sales leader? And I feel like you're kind of hitting a similar gap that way. Anybody who's good at creating content is going to face this problem sooner or later.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a massive uptick in solopreneurs. And a lot of those are going to go, how do I scale this? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can ruin your business this way as you try to scale it. You start outsourcing everything, and if you don't maintain the quality and the quality goes down, then it doesn't matter that you've got a lot more content out there if the quality's gone down.
And that's the mistake that a lot of folks who are kind of here do, like, oh yes, AI, and then they just pick a tool and let it write for them, and then all of a sudden their really good ideas are kind of crappy generic content.
Yeah. I've tried that where, I mean, I've experimented with it, saying, okay, here are a bunch of my blog posts, check these out, now go write me a new one. And then I'm like, no, this is not working. I've got to do more work to figure this out somehow.
Okay, so good deal then. So we have now that I kind of have now that I've narrowed it down to these 11 now chapters, it's going to be easier for me to actually get the book done, because I will be answering the questions that I know now people are legitimately asking.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Yeah. Once you have the outline, it's easy. It's almost like a coloring book. You're just coloring within the lines, but the outline gives you those lines, and then you just fill it in.
Yeah.
And the blog to book is a great method too. For a lot of people, that's an easy way to write a book, is just to turn it into blog posts. And then when you have a bunch of blog posts, you're like, well, there's my book. Just need to edit it a little bit and slap it together.
And you recommend putting in a Google Doc, is that right?
That's just what I use. Other people, there's another piece of software out there called Atticus that is really popular and growing. And I know the guy who created it. And so I would check out Atticus. But for me, a Google Doc is just, Atticus is trying to bring together the best of all the other programs out there, the collaboration from Google Docs, which is what a lot of people love, the formatting abilities of Word, which I don't know if anybody loves Word, but everybody feels forced into it.
Yeah.
And so Atticus is trying to combine everything in one place. It's new software. It's changing rapidly. So you might get in there and feel like, it's not where I want it to be yet. For me, I'm kind of stuck on Google Docs, where I just feel like, hey, this is good enough. It does the job. It's basically free. So why would I switch? But Atticus will actually take your document, help you write it the right way, and then format it to go straight into publishing. And so it's kind of A to Z type of piece of software. Whereas with Google Docs, as soon as I say, oh, all right, my book's done, well, then I have to go put it into Word or Atticus or something else to format it. and then it messes everything up, and then somebody has to
start
go
all over
through and
again.
fix it. But for me, the ease of working in Google Docs,
Mhm.
plus the fact that I just have somebody else do the formatting for print, makes it's the easiest for me at the moment. But who knows? I might be using Atticus in a year.